Hi friends, this is Jenna with Books Love Jenna, as in those books, they just love her. And I am here to invite you to read some books with us in the month of September. I'm really excited about these. One of them is a little bit of a departure, or may seem on the surface to be a little bit of a departure from the kinds of books we've been reading all year long, which have really focused on like memoir and identity and culture and community. And one of these books may, if you judge books by their cover, appear to be far out there. In fact, it does take place far out there, and that is Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. I'm here to tell you though that although this is sci-fi, and one of our regular members recently expressed that they don't like sci-fi, and I have that in the forefront of my head. But I want to say, this is sci-fi, but it's going to be a favorite book. It's going to be a favorite book. If you have enjoyed most of the books that we've read so far, you're going to love this one too. And I'm not just talking directly to that friend. I'm talking to everybody. If you are unfamiliar with the work of Nnedi Okorafor, she is a Afrofuturist writer. She writes science fiction that takes place in the future in Africa, or having to do with the continent of Africa. I add that having to do with because this one does not take place on African soil. This is the story told in 3 novellas. So you might find something that looks very, very short called Binti. That's just the first of the 3 novellas, and I'm inviting everyone to read all 3 novellas. And this also includes a brand new Binti story. Brand new, this is several years old, this bind up, but I'm inviting you to read the entire trilogy. It's just this long, and it reads very, very quickly. This is the story of Binti, a young girl in the future who's, I don't remember the word they use, but like her family, her tribe, her clan, her culture is very much tied to the earth, like tied to the ground, tied to the planet, tied to the soil. Their power comes from that, their heritage comes from that, their language and their culture and their belief system all comes from that. And she is the first of her people to decide, you know what? I want to go to university on another planet, and I want to study something beyond the soil. I want to study something beyond what we've always known in a place that is unlike where we've always been. Her people, because of their kind of, let's use granola lifestyle and culture, are kind of looked down upon by other people groups, cultures, species in the interplanetary universe. And so it starts while she's waiting in line. She's waiting in line. She has traditionally put the land on her face, as her people do. She's waiting in line at the airport or the spaceport to board the vessel that is going to take her to this other planet so she can go to college. And she is being targeted, racially profiled, and mocked by other citizens of the universe. And what happens in this book is all about culture, peace, community, identity, personhood, and it is told in such beautiful language. So I know that some people are going to be a little bit put off by the very science fiction-y look of this cover. I think it's beautiful. I think it's a gorgeous cover. But I know some people are going to be like, I don't, like, what is that? Like, I don't know if this book is for me. And I am here to tell you that if you care about people, it's for you, okay? So I'm going to read the first paragraph, or maybe I'm going to read the first bit, okay? I powered up the transporter and said a silent prayer. I had no idea what I was going to do if it didn't work. My transporter was cheap, so even a droplet of moisture, or more likely a grain of sand, would cause it to short. It was faulty, and most of the time I had to restart it over and over before it worked. Please not now, I thought. The transporter shivered in the sand and held my breath. Tiny, flat, and black as a prayer stone, it buzzed softly and then slowly rose from the sand. Finally, it produced the baggage-lifting force. I grinned. Now I could make it to the shuttle. I swiped Otjize, I don't know how to say it, Otjize, from my forehead with my index finger and knelt down. Then I touched the finger to the sand, grounding the sweet-smelling red clay into it. "Thank you," I whispered. It was a half-mile walk along the dark desert road. With the transporter working, I would make it there on time. Straightening up, I paused and shut my eyes. Now the weight of my entire life was pressing on my shoulders. I was defying the most traditional part of myself for the first time in my entire life. I was leaving in the dead of night, and they had no clue. My 9 siblings, all older than me except for my younger sister and brother, would never see this coming. My parents would never imagine I'd do such a thing in a million years. By the time they all realized what I had done and where I was going, I'd have left the planet. In my absence, my parents would growl to each other that I was to never set foot in their home again. My 4 aunties and 2 uncles who lived down the road would shout and gossip among themselves about how I'd scandalized our entire bloodline. I was going to be a pariah. "Go," I softly whispered to the transporter, stamping my foot. The thin metal rings I wore around each ankle jingled noisily, but I stamped my foot again. Once on, the transporter worked best when I didn't touch it. "Go," I said again, sweat forming on my brow. When nothing moved, I chanced giving the 2 large suitcases sitting atop the force field a shove. They moved smoothly, and I breathed another sigh of relief. At least some luck was on my side. 15 minutes later, I purchased a ticket and boarded the shuttle. The sun was barely beginning to peek over the horizon. As I moved past seated passengers, far too aware of the bushy ends of my plaited hair softly slapping people in the face, I cast my eyes to the floor. Our hair is thick, and mine has always been very thick. My old auntie liked to call it ododo because it grew wild and dense like a dodo grass. Just before leaving, I'd rolled my plaited hair with fresh, sweet-smelling ujitse I'd made specifically for the trip. Who knew what I looked like to these people who didn't know my people so well? A woman leaned away from me as I passed, her face pinched as if she smelled something foul. "Sorry," I whispered, watching my feet and trying to ignore the stares of almost everyone in the shuttle. Still, I couldn't help glancing around. 2 girls who might have been a few years older than me covered their mouths with hands so pale they looked untouched by the sun. Everyone looked as if the sun was his or her enemy. I was the only Himba on the shuttle. I quickly found and moved to a seat. The shuttle was one of the new sleek models that looked like the bullets my teachers used to calculate ballistic coefficients during my A-levels when I was growing up. These ones glided fast over land using a combination of current air, magnetic field, and exponential energy, an easy craft to build if you had the equipment and the time. It was also a nice vehicle for hot desert terrain, where the roads leading out of town were terribly maintained. My people didn't like to leave the homeland. I sat in the back so I could look out the large window. I could see the light from my father's Astrolab shop and the sandstorm analyzer my brother had built at the top of the route. That's what we called my parents' big house. 6 generations of my family lived there. It was the oldest house in my village, maybe the oldest in the city. It was made of stone and concrete, cool in the night, hot in the day, and it was patched with solar panels and covered with bioluminescent plants that liked to stop glowing just before sunrise. My bedroom was at the top of the house. The shuttle began to move, and I stared until I couldn't see it anymore. "What am I doing?" I whispered. It's very human. And the scientific talk or jargon that you heard is pretty much the extent of how that goes. It does get a little more philosophical as the story goes on, but it's very approachable. So I'm very excited about this one, extremely excited, and I hope that you will join us in reading this. This is our fiction book, and our accompanying nonfiction book is a collection of essays by Sejal Shah. This is One Way to Dance. And this I'm going to read you the back of. This says, In the linked essays that make up her debut collection, This Is One Way to Dance, Sejal Shah explores culture, language, family, and place. Throughout the collection, Shah reflects on what it means to make oneself visible and legible through writing in a country that struggles with race, and maps her identity as an American, Asian American, writer of color, and feminist. She draws on ongoing interests in ethnicity and place, the geographic and cultural distances between people, both real and imagined. Her memoir and essays emerges as she wrestles with her experiences growing up and living in Western New York, an area of stark racial and economic segregation, as the daughter of Gujarati immigrants. This Is One Way to Dance introduces a vital new voice to the conversation about race and belonging. So it's that line. She draws on ongoing interest in ethnicity and place, the geographic and cultural distances between people, both real and imagined, that connects us to Binti, that pulls us into a conversation between these two books. So I am incredibly excited about September's reads. I am really excited to revisit Binti, which I have not reread in quite some time, and I hope that you will join. Until we meet again, let's go read.